Ladies and gentlemen, not every fear is weakness, not every silence is indifference, and not every criticism is truth. In a world where emotional defense is mistaken for detachment and calm is seen as coldness, there are those rare moments when someone's fear of losing you reveals just how deeply they care. Their fear of losing you signals deep care. It's easy to misunderstand that fear as insecurity or emotional instability, but in truth, it's often the most honest reflection of how much someone values what they've found in you. For someone who doesn't easily attach, who's spent years building emotional defenses, the thought of losing someone significant is not just a passing anxiety, it's a sign that something real has taken root in them. And that scares them more than they'll ever admit. When someone has developed emotional self-protection, they tend to keep a healthy distance, they avoid relying on others, avoid revealing too much, and stay in control of their emotions. Not because they don't want connection, but because they fear what might happen if they let someone too close. So when that person begins to fear losing you, it means you've broken through their defenses. It means you've reached a place where you matter more than their fear of being vulnerable. This kind of fear doesn't always show up in poetic, romantic ways. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's clumsy. Sometimes it shows up in difficult conversations, defensive tones, or unexpected outbursts. But at the core of it, it's not anger, it's fear. Fear that you'll walk away, fear that they're not good enough. Fear that they finally found something real and they don't know how to hold on to it. You might hear it in statements like, "I don't want to mess this up." That simple sentence holds layers of unspoken emotion. It's not just about the relationship, it's about their own self-doubt, their awareness of their patterns, and their genuine hope that this time can be different. They've probably lost before relationships, trust, connection, and they carry those losses like silent baggage. When they say they're afraid of losing you, they're not just reacting to this moment. They're reacting to every time life has proven to them that closeness often leads to pain. Their fear is a reflection of the depth to which you've reached them. You're no longer just someone they enjoy spending time with. You're someone who's starting to feel like home, someone whose absence would echo in their day-to-day life. That fear is uncomfortable because it disrupts the illusion of control they've worked so hard to maintain. But it also means they're invested emotionally, mentally, fully, and yet the fear of loss doesn't always make someone more expressive. Sometimes it makes them retreat, become distant, or overanalyze small things. They might test you, push you, or even question the relationship, not because they want to leave, but because they're scared you might. That push-pull dynamic is often misunderstood. It looks like confusion, but it's an internal war between their need for safety and their desire to hold onto love. If you listen closely, you'll recognize the difference between someone who is trying to control you and someone who is simply afraid of losing you. The former manipulates, the latter wrestles silently with their emotions. The person who fears losing you may not always say it directly, but their actions will show it. The late night texts, the check-ins, the moments they open up even when it's hard, the subtle efforts to reconnect after a distance. All of these are signs that they care more than they're used to admitting. That fear might be expressed in moments when they realize they've hurt you, or when they see you pulling away emotionally. It's in their eyes when they ask, "Are we okay?" It's in the shift in their energy when they feel the connection thinning. They might not say, "I'm scared of losing you," but they'll try harder, they'll reach out, they'll reflect, and those efforts, no matter how imperfect, are proof of something deeper stirring within them. To fear the loss of someone means the heart has opened, and for people who aren't used to letting people in, that's a terrifying but beautiful shift. They might not know how to navigate that fear, but the presence of it means something profound. They care. Not just a little, not just conveniently, but deeply enough that the thought of you not being there unsettles them. It reminds them that this is real, and real to them is rare. Calmness is often misunderstood. People confuse it with weakness, indifference, or emotional numbness. But real calm, the kind that comes from self-awareness and inner strength, isn't passive at all. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending things don't bother you. It's about having the control to choose your reaction when everything around you is trying to pull you out of character. There's a moment right before you respond where you feel the choice. The heat rises, your heart beats faster, and your mind begins building the perfect comeback. In that moment, your ego wants to win. It wants to prove a point. It wants to make them feel the way they made you feel. But calm steps in like a quiet hand on your shoulder and says, not everything deserves your energy. The truth is, anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can interrupt. Anyone can lash out when they feel provoked. But it takes a deeper kind of power to remain composed when every part of you is being tested. Calm isn't about shrinking back. It's about knowing that you could react, but deciding that your peace is worth more than temporary satisfaction. People who haven't built that calm often mistake it for softness. They'll poke at you to see if they can get a rise. They'll push you because they're used to chaos being the language of connection. When you don't respond the way they expect, it unsettles them. It reminds them that you are not living at the level of their dysfunction. Calm throws people off because it exposes something that you don't need to fight to be heard, and you don't need to raise your voice to raise your standards. You become the person who doesn't need to explain everything to be understood. And in doing that, you protect your power. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. The loudest voice often belongs to the most insecure person, the one who hasn't yet learned how to sit with discomfort without turning it outward. But calm knows how to carry discomfort without turning it into destruction. It doesn't need to convince, convert, or conquer anyone. It just needs to hold its ground. Being calm doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've outgrown the need to be emotionally dragged into every storm. You stop being the person who lets other people decide what kind of day you'll have. You stop letting other people's chaos become your chaos. And that shift, that moment when you stop matching energy and start protecting yours, is when everything changes. You begin to realize that calm is a boundary in motion. It's how you teach people what access they have to your emotions. It's the line between I will address this with clarity and I will not entertain this with chaos. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to overreact to be taken seriously. You don't have to argue to make a point. Your calm can say everything without saying a word, and often that silence carries more weight than anything you could have screamed in frustration. It takes maturity to get there. It takes practice. Because staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've done the internal work to manage what you feel. It means you've learned that no argument is worth abandoning your values. No situation is worth becoming someone you're not proud of. People will still try to test you. They'll say things to push your boundaries to see if you'll fold. But when you choose calm, you're no longer playing that game. You're saying, I don't move just because someone else is shaking. That's what makes it a power move. It's not submission, it's strategy. It's emotional intelligence wrapped in restraint. The person who chooses calm isn't disconnected. They're deeply connected to themselves, to their values, and to the bigger picture. They're not looking to win every battle because they are focused on winning something greater, their peace, their growth, their life. So when someone tries to provoke you, when they expect the old version of you to show up, there's power in surprising them with stillness. There's impact in being unmoved, not because you don't care, but because you care more about what's ahead of you than what's trying to drag you back. Calm isn't about staying small. It's about standing taller without making noise. And once you master that, no one can take it from you. There's a reason someone can say the exact same words as another person, and yet only one of them cuts you. It's not just the message, It's the energy behind it. People don't just speak from logic. They speak from pain, from stories, from wounds that haven't healed yet. And when they haven't made peace with their pain, they throw it at the nearest target. Sometimes that target is you. Someone feels abandoned in their past, so they call you too distant when you set a healthy boundary. Someone struggles with self-worth, so they accuse you of being arrogant the moment you express confidence. Someone hasn't forgiven themselves for past mistakes, so they judge you mercilessly for yours. That's not clarity, that's projection. When people haven't processed their emotional injuries, they leak. They don't bleed on the person who hurt them. They bleed on the ones who didn't. And if you don't recognize this for what it is, you'll spend your life taking things personally that were never truly about you. You'll start dimming your light so others don't feel insecure around you. You'll start softening your truth so others don't feel triggered by your growth. You'll carry shame that was never yours to begin with. Understanding this doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior. It doesn't mean you excuse cruelty, but it does mean you stop internalizing it. You stop thinking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "What pain might they be speaking from?" Not to justify their actions, but to remind yourself that not every opinion thrown at you is a reflection of who you are. People project their pain in subtle and loud ways. The friend who always finds a way to criticize your success may be battling a fear that they'll never measure up. The partner who gets suspicious when you're genuinely loving may carry abandonment wounds from someone else. The colleague who constantly undermines you may still be fighting for approval they never received as a child. These dynamics don't begin with you, but if you're not careful, they can end up shaping you. That's why emotional boundaries matter. You need to know what's yours, and what isn't. You can listen without absorbing. You can observe without reacting. You can care without carrying. That's emotional maturity. It's the ability to be close to someone and still not lose yourself in their chaos. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is not fix them, not explain yourself endlessly, but simply refuse to take on the role they're casting you in. Because when someone is projecting, they don't see you. They see their story, their past, their fear, and your job is not to play along. Your job is to stay grounded in who you actually are, not who their pain tells them you must be. You might hear things like, "You don't care," "You're selfish," "You're cold." Just because you've decided to stop overgiving, you might hear "You've changed," because you no longer abandon yourself to please others, and you might be called too much or too sensitive, simply because you now have the courage to name what hurts. But remember, these people are allowed to be hurt. They're allowed to have their experiences. What they're not allowed to do is dump it all on you and expect you to carry it. You are not their mirror. You are not their emotional landfill. You're a whole person with your own history, your own growth, your own limits. Let them project if they must. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you what they need to make sense of their pain. And you stay still, you stay clear, you stay kind, but firm, because when you don't take the projection personally, you stop the cycle. You stop the emotional tug-of-war. You stop letting someone's unhealed wounds drag you into proving your innocence over and over again. You begin to realize that some people don't want truth. They want comfort for their pain, and if blaming you gives them that, they'll do it without thinking twice. You don't owe anyone your identity just because they're uncomfortable with theirs. You don't need to absorb someone's unhealed story to stay connected. Real connection begins when both people take responsibility for their own pain. Let them project, but don't let it land. You have the right to stand in your truth, even when someone is standing in their trauma. If someone fears losing you, it's because you touched a place in them that's rarely reached. And if you've found the strength to remain calm when chaos calls your name, you've already won more than an argument. You've reclaimed your peace. Don't shrink for someone else's storm. Don't absorb pain that doesn't belong to you. You're allowed to be clear, kind, and unshakably calm because that's your power. And remember, your peace is not up for negotiation.